This is the High School Crossfire. Welcome back.
Second speaker, Team Affirmatives. So, Team Op came here and presented its arguments. We, as Team Affirmatives, have come here to tell you. Number one, apprehending supremacy often creates neglect. UN history came in at a time of urgency with the government. And reports are still being... They claim that they are solving a problem, but this problem is not being solved. They're talking about ineffectiveness because reports are still being sent. They came here and they talked about our perimeter. I would like to reinstate that our perimeter is the tier 3 countries, soaring, not neglecting, we are arguing effectiveness, and particular frameworks make it hard to answer urgency. The first speaker of Team Affirmatives came here and talked about easy international collaborations. We would like to let you know that there are collaborations that the government cannot make. For example, if there are things like wrangles, right, and they are not trusted, or maybe they have some wrangles. So therefore, these community-based initiatives can actually reach where the government cannot reach. They also came and talked about, my first speaker came and talked about bureaucraticness, right? And then they talked about delay. They talked about our delay, but we are not accepting that because we as government, okay, at the beginning of every financial year, money is allocated to specific problems, for example, human trafficking, and when such agencies actually come up, the money is already available. They talked about us not being able to cause awareness because of not having adequate legal frameworks. We would like to let you know that inadequate legal frameworks make it hard to answer urgency. Now, I'm building on my case. We as Team Affirmatives are coming here and not talk about community engagement. Number one, research has shown that due to community engagement, 70% of members of our community have actively participated in anti-human trafficking, programs, hence tackling down the vice. Our second argument is that funding and resources. We have seen that 60% more funds have been 60% more funds have been collected through the communities compared to the national level, and we are also here to argue victim support success. Rejected. Victim support success. So according to the survivors of the human trafficking, according to research, 75% of them under the local communities have actually reintegrated and have had stable employment, compared to the 40% of the national efforts. And being that the community, these are voluntary acts, being voluntary acts, people are going to actually put in their all. They are going to do it with inspiration. But the government is doing this because it's what they're supposed to do. They are doing it to show that they are actually doing something, not because they want to impact. We have done this. We have done this because we are doing it because we actually want to impact. The second thing that we have done, we have reliable sources of funds, right? He came and talked about the UN. I'd like to tell him that the UN, actually, it can fund us, and it has things beyond its borders. For example, it can actually sanction things in other countries. I'd like to talk about the influence that we have. We have influence in advocacy to extent that the government has actually implemented things like laws. It has changed a lot of things, a lot of its acts because of the influence we have, right? Because of these media campaigns that are being championed. These media campaigns that are being championed by the local communities. And with that, and to close my case, I would like to end by saying that local communities have caused awareness to the government as some things are not being changed unless they are spoken about from the grassroots level.
Panel. So, Team Affirmative actually incensed, or they concur to the fact that even when there is still existence of a certain problem, that is to say that even when there is still existence of human trafficking, they still argue that there is still existence of the community-based initiatives. Now that is to say that if at all the problem is at its core and community-based initiatives, that then proves a significant impact that there is nothing that has worked or there is nothing that has changed. However, even when we are in government and there is some sort of bureaucracy, we think government has put a sort of goal and a sort of something that is most likely going to work and even going to solve the problem at that particular moment. We think with community-based initiatives, it is just an assertion of indebted ideas and people who are passionate but do not have the goal or even do not have the insubordinate body in themselves to create such kind of incentives. We think that even when they are sort of most likely in community-based initiatives, it is just a goal of combined individuals who are threatened and fear. The idea of rationality. Now, I want us to understand that when individuals lose lives of fellows, that is to say that if people are taken for human trafficking and they be and their kidneys and stuff be sold, rejected, and stuff be sold, we think then individuals lose those lives of people. The problem with that is that individuals get some kind of threat and individuals are threatened. They live in a world of hypochondria, and that then in and of itself creates the irrationality in individuals. The most likely bad side of that is that the fear that is in individuals makes them create ideas that are most likely not going to respond to the problem in its core. We think even when the problem at that kind of hard is even at its core, we think people who are irrational and in that state of fear cannot be more likely present to solve that problem anyways. Secondly, we even argue that even when best community versus worst government, we think worst government still wins at its core. It is unfair for you to argue in presence of worst government because we think that even when government is at its core and the communities are at the top, at the least level, we think government beats them in things like resources, supremacy, but even fighting bureaucracy and things like corruption. That even when resources are put to hand, government still has bodies like anti-corruption unit to end such things. What about communities? Communities are just indebted, passionate individuals who think they can create those bodies, but they do not have a goal or say. They are just individuals who can come together, but they do not have a goal or even a particular stance to solve certain things. That is to show you that we cannot buy into the idea that community-based initiatives can solve the problem and are more effective. That then proves how government will prevent human trafficking to begin with. The idea of social media. AF argues that it is most likely that social media brings people together to work with government. But let us underlook what really lies under social media. People go on social media to look for memes. People go on social media to look for their celebrities. People go on social media and TikTok to look for Beyonce and see stuff that most likely entices them. People go on social media to look for comedy store. They do not go on social media to look for ways of preventing human trafficking. That all is to say that social media cannot be a platform where most individuals can buy into ideas of saying that they are most likely going to fight human trafficking at the end of the day. We think that then is kind of assertion from affirmative, and we are not going to buy into that idea still. Lastly, the idea that they talk about the UN, that UN is a community-based initiative. We think even when affirmative lies, they lie on a point that will beat them anyways. They argue that the UN will most likely be a community-based initiative. But let us understand that even when the UN sends aid and funds, it goes directly to government. That means that the UN's trust is in government. The UN works hand in hand with government. The initiatives are based on what government can do for its individuals. Government is the one that decides on what those funds from the UN are going to do. So it means that community still has no say on things like the UN funds, and that in and of itself is an assertion from opposition, and we still think they do not buy into that idea. The last idea of responsibility coming from social contract theory. We think then government has that kind of responsibility to take care of its individuals, and that's why we think social contract theory still beats the debate. Thank you.
This is the High School Crossfire. We'll be back in a minute.